There's a lawyer in the studio, Edwin Sifuna, Senator. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing, Senator?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
First of all, it's the first time that we're seeing you since Upande Nini Daraja. Congratulations.
Tangu munipandishe daraja. Nyinyi ndio mulinipandisha daraja.
Kabisa.
So thank you so much for the support that you've given me over the years. You know, they say that you could have all these good ideas and ability, but if nobody ever sees it, then they cannot pandisha you the daraja that you're saying. So by availing this platform for me, I believe many people in Nairobi and in Kenya were able to see that I could actually be a legislator, and they have given me that opportunity. So I thank you most profoundly, and to all your listeners and viewers, I say thank you so much for giving me that position.
Karibu sana.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you again face to face that yes, to whom much is given, much is also expected.
Absolutely.
This show will make sure that there's a fire under your bum every day.
I think you cannot threaten
it is not a
rocket. Listen,
it is not a threat.
You don't threaten to put fire below a rocket or at the bottom of a rocket. That's exactly what propels it to the higher level. So I welcome all fire. I remember City.
Yes.
I made a commitment here.
Yes, you did.
I remember you were here. That in fact that is what I expect. That even after I have become the Senator of Nairobi, I expect that we will sit on this show and you will put that fire that he is alluding to. But I can take it. I can guarantee you.
This man isn't alluding. He's stating categorically.
Senator.
Yes, sir.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
I think starting off just that point that CT has raised, because we've talked about it a number of times.
Absolutely.
Legal aid in the country.
Yeah.
What's the state of it?
No, I mean, the point that you make is quite valid, that in fact it is very easy for you to get into very serious legal problems if you do not have the sort of proper legal representation that you need. True that there is a Legal Aid Act, and that we had expected that, of course, even if most of the work that is done under that act by the lawyers is usually supposed to be pro bono work, but even pro bono work requires some little facilitation, and you will see that mostly it is the young lawyers, the people who are beginning, who probably have a little bit more time on their hands, who volunteer for these services, and they need some motivation, just something to even just clean your jacket, so that when you go to court you
something
look like
to brush your shoes.
Absolutely, so that you look like a proper lawyer and you're able to do a good job. So many people have found themselves at very difficult legal problems because they lack representation. To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed. Things happen harder for you when you are without means. So of course I used to do it myself. I used to contribute a few hours of my time towards representation of people who could not afford legal representation. But to be honest with you, as I've grown older and in the profession, it becomes harder and harder for you to find the time to be able to do it. And now certainly I haven't given any hours this year because of what I have been involved in. But yes, we will have to look at it and to try and see if greater financing can be channeled to us, is because we know the value of it. If you attend any of the magistrates' courts across the country, you will see a lot of these petty offenders, people who have been accused of all sorts of petty things, from destruction of forest. I was in Kakamega just recently. Somebody was being charged with cutting a tree illegally in the Kakamega forest, and you could see this somebody who was just trying to be able to get something to eat, so it is a very dire situation, and we, of course, as a representative of the people, we will continue to represent, to raise a voice and say that we need more resources allocated to these things.
In Parliament now that you are a parliamentarian,
yes,
your job is cut out for you.
Absolutely.
And you now sit in the minority in the Senate. There's a lot of expectation on the minority, and of course then we've had this conversation now. So is a minority an opposition? Is opposition, or should we look at Parliament as Parliament and not Parliament as opposition and government? But there is still expectation that we have a government in place, and this government is to be held to account. but there is also people's representation, and those people's representation or representatives also have a job that they ought to do. Now, how do you see yourself playing in this space? You joined the Senate, you are in the minority side, there is a government in place, it's come in with very many promises that it needs to fulfill, and you have got to make sure that it does that.
Well, first of all, in the system of governance that we have, the presidential system, it is actually the responsibility of Parliament as a whole to oversight the executive. But at the advent of this system in 2013, when we had the first Parliament under the new constitution, there was I don't know how I can categorize it, but the members of Parliament then who were elected on the ruling party conflated their role, so that they saw themselves as an extension of the executive, because it was sort of a hangover from the previous system that we had, that people thought, this is a government MP and this is an opposition MP. So that if you remember correctly, during those times when we had the so-called tyranny of numbers, they understood their role to be essentially to defend the Jubilee regime, to be able to give them whatever they want. They neutered all the constitutional, safeguards in terms of even oversight. You had CS now Linturi confessing of how at one particular point when he wanted to bring an impeachment motion against a cabinet secretary, he was leaned upon by the executive because he told them, wewe ni mtu wa serikali. But as it is right now, sometimes it is possible for us to find a middle ground, even from our colleagues in the Senate. And I want to be very clear here that the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza in the Senate, at least Senator Aaron Cheruiyot and the others, Kinaboni Halwale, they can find objectivity. When they mean to find objectivity, they can actually find objectivity and say that this is something we need to speak about as a house, put our heads together and try and find solutions for Kenyans. But for us as members of the minority side as well, this oversight role is going to be clearer, not necessarily within the Houses of Parliament, but outside, because city people expect us to be able to speak for them. Even if in the Houses of Parliament, because of the nature of how decisions are made on the floor, that it is a numerical strength issue, that it is possible for you to want to do something good for the people, or that is something that is against government's propositions or proposals, but because you don't have the numbers to be able to do that, then you are not as effective in terms of pushing back. But there are other ways, so there are other platforms, including these ones, where when we speak about issues, then people understand that there is actually representation of the minority side, and not necessarily it is not a voting issue. Like when I'm here and I see that something that government has proposed, for instance, is not something that is pro-people, and I have received a lot of petitions, people complaining, this is how we operate. We are able to then just raise their voice, because you see, the role of Parliament is not just legislative. It is also, you have to be the people's voice. Not many people will be invited to this studio. But if there are things that those people want to say, I will say them. Many of the things you see, like this issue that City was calling me to discuss here, the question of parking, it is not about Sifuna, because you know for a fact that I can afford to pay parking. But there are people who cannot afford to pay parking. And it is important for them to be represented, So that is how we are going to do it. That is how I see my role. It's not always possible to find that middle ground or bipartisanship, but I have argued, in fact, that sometimes when there is a matter affecting the country, affecting the people, we can be objective about it. The cost of living is very high. I am in the Senate Committee on Energy. I was very happy that my chairman, who of course comes from the majority side, put out a statement last week saying we as the energy committee have to do something about the cost of electricity. And we were breaking it down. You buy a 100 shilling token, only 49 shillings goes to buying tokens. That is 3.9 tokens. The rest of it is charges and fees and levies, and it's just ridiculous. So this is something that we all agree it doesn't make any sense.
It's
and then
too
we
expensive.
go deep. Yes, it is too expensive. You go deeper and try and understand what is the reason why this power cost is this high. Then you understand that there are a lot of interest in the energy sector. We have all these contracts as we signed with people who produce power using diesel. It's very expensive. In fact, of that 51 shillings that goes to taxes and levies, the biggest component, I think it was about 27 shillings, is for fuel cost charge. So it is just obvious that we need to do something about it. And I was happy that wherever it is you sit in the House, this is a real problem affecting real people, and we can do something about it as a Senate.
You know, Mheshimiwa, what you're saying, if it was given a tune, would be music that I would really like to keep listening to.
Yes.
In fact, it's the only music I'd probably listen to in my car. But are we then saying, or do I hear you to be saying, that we have gotten to a point in our politics where politicians can actually look at issues for what they are without due consideration to party positions and party leadership positions? Are you saying that?
It is possible. I'm saying, at least in the Senate, I have seen it from the leadership of the majority side, that they are willing to have that conversation. That a problem, we can agree that this is a flask.
Yes.
You don't have to see a
argue.
cup because you are from the minority or majority side. So even, for instance, the motion that we passed last week, it received bipartisan support, because people understand if you can define a problem and we all see this is a problem, and we have the capacity to do something about it, it is possible. And we represent the same people, by the way, city. Yes. All the same people who voted for Sifuna here in the city, for instance, voted for Sakaja, from the other side. But we represent the same people who talk to me. They also talk to leaders elected on the other side, and they say the same thing. It is not as if the Kenya Kwanza supporters are buying electricity at a different price from the Azimio side. No, this is a problem everywhere. We have argued with them, for instance, about what we need to do in the short term on the cost of living. They have proposed to us a long-term solution, saying, maybe it will take 1 year for the cost of unga to come down. We have argued that because we know how long it takes for a human being to die if they are unable to feed themselves, we cannot wait for a year. We have asked, for instance, that city, it would have been easier for them to retain that subsidy, which ensured that unga was retailing at 100 shillings for the short term. Because I think just 1 year for them to get their act together, it is possible to retain that subsidy. Even when it comes to fuel, they argue that the fuel subsidy was benefiting 5 companies. The person in Mukuru Kwanjenga who's buying kerosene at 127 a litre now doesn't know these companies you're talking about. All they know is that they used to buy kerosene at 127, but now it's 150. You know, that is the difference in their lives. So I have asked them, is it not possible for us to say, okay, maybe you need time to sort out all these cartels and others, but can we be alive to see the end of these cartels? But if I don't eat, in 3 weeks I'm dead. You know, so let us. It is difficult, yes, to have these conversations. They have a different view of how to do it. They're telling us, we have to wait for the new crop to be harvested and the others. But we have thought that it would have been better for them to cushion Kenyans now, so that we are all alive after that 1 year. And you know, the problem is that also the person who's proposing those timelines, it does not have a history of keeping within those timelines. So it could be 1 year now, but when we ask him later, after 1 year, he will say the problem was greater, give me another 6 months, you know? And Kenyans are suffering. So it is possible, City. I think with the sort of leadership we have, especially the Senate this time round has a lot of young people. We are very enthusiastic. We want to get things going. But we're also getting to learn a few things about this legislative process. It's not the easiest. Because I can tell you, we've been expressed this frustration to the speaker that if you look at this monster called the order paper, it is such a rigid thing, and it is so annoying that every day you go into sitting of a house, there is an order paper that then lists certain things. And the most important things, in my view, like motions and petitions and bills, they come at the very tail end. So there is something called statement hour. The order, the standing orders defines statement hour to be just that, 1 hour for statements. But most of the times it is statements day, you know. So that like this motion we had on parking, it was on the order paper for at least I think 12 sitting days. And that is almost 3 weeks, my brother. So every time you get into the house, because the order paper has to be followed, when you get to statements, and you know Senate sits only from 2:30 to 6:30. I don't think that we are doing value to the taxpayers. But that is a story for another day. Tomorrow we'll be in Mombasa to discuss these things, even with the House Business Committee.
Are we going to break it?
Let's take a break.
Yes.
It's 7:30. Nairobi Senator Sifuna is with us in the studio in the Situation Room. We are talking about the role of the minority in the Senate and the role of Parliament in totality in holding the government to account.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The Murang'a Road junction. This is Murang'a Road into Kiambu Road into Muthaiga Road. All those three roads join Murang'a Road at that interchange, that tunnel that then branches off into Wangari Maathai and Murang'a Road. There's a serious design issue there. And I think the senator will tell him about it so I can go and raise it in Parliament. Always the problem is up to that point. Because beyond Murang'a Road, beyond the tunnel into Wangari Maathai Road, it's all moving. Something needs to be addressed there, Senator.
Yeah, luckily for you, I also sit on the Senate Transport Committee. And we are scheduled to have a conversation with all the leadership of the various institutions, from the Kenyans to the Kuras. Another thing that I noticed very quickly, because here in Nairobi, Nairobians will call you and say, oh, such and such a road is in such a bad state. We need to have it fixed. And when you go there, to the road agencies, you realize that there is a very great deal of confusion as to which roads belong to Kera, as to which roads are for Kura, as to which roads are supposed to be done by the by Kenya or
county.
by the county.
Yep.
So you have a conversation with stakeholders, because you see, people always bring these issues to us. I had a conversation with members of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. They are complaining about the Dar es Salaam Road and Homa Bay Road. You go and see the Director General, Kura, and you're like, hey, so this one, who is supposed to do it, tells you this one is ours, but this other one is not ours. This one you have to. And there is a huge Gazette notice that was put out a few years ago, essentially classifying which road is where. It is bigger than
it's voluminous.
It's huge, yeah. So we need to get out of this confusion, because in somebody's head, because Nairobi is a city, you would expect that Kenya Rural Roads Authority has no role.
Yeah.
But there are certain roads, there are certain roads that they...
But does it not sound to you like this is contrived confusion? I mean...
Absolutely.
When there's such clarity,
yeah.
And then when it comes to the organs of state that are supposed to be in charge of it, they are the ones who are portraying confusion.
Yeah.
There is no confusion.
Yeah, we need to sort it out so that when there is an issue, we know who is responsible for it. That clarity is what will attach a responsibility. As believers in devolution, there is a conversation, and my chairman also in the committee agrees that we need to, this thing of unbundling functions, central government agencies that have no business, in matters that are devolved. There are certain roads that are devolved, but then there are agencies from the national government that are in charge of those roads. It's also an issue.
Yep.
We need to be able to fully devolve the functions that are set out in Schedule 4 of the Constitution and the attendant resources. And I hope that it will be done during this term, because I can assure you, City, this is one thing that there is no minority and majority side on.
Everyone is agreed on this.
Absolutely. Everybody's in agreement that, in fact, this needs to happen. And we're very happy that at least two of our colleagues in the Senate have gotten the opportunity to go into cabinet now. We have our former colleague in the Senate as well, a former senator. I was not there then, but who is now the Speaker of the National Assembly. Some of those, tough wars between the National Assembly and the Senate that were an impediment to us being able to achieve some of these things.
The transport docket.
Absolutely. The CS now is Kipchumba Murkomen.
Was a senator.
He promised us. He has promised us that because he's styled himself as a champion of devolution over the years, that he's going to lead this effort to be able, at least in the transport sector, to unbundle all these functions and then to be able to hand them down fully to the county governments. So we will hold their feet to the fire as well.
Please do.
And make sure
Please
that they do these things.
Please do. People are suffering. I mean, that traffic on Thika Superhighway,
absolutely,
it's just madness.
But Eric, when you consider just the man hours or the hours, I mean, the cost of the wastage that is brought about by just time because of this simple thing.
Yeah. No, but the conversation is bigger than just the design of the roads or the roads themselves. One of the things that I agree with my governor is that I think for the lessons are there for major cities in the world, that the solution to this has to be mass transport.
Yes.
There is no other way to do it, because at the end of the day, I was told that in a few years' time, I think we should have by 2030 1.3 million vehicles on the roads of Nairobi alone. So it doesn't really matter how long you cry. You have to find a solution. And some of the things that we have seen, some of the attempts we have seen, like drawing a red line on Thika Road, I don't think that is what bus rapid transport means. We need to be serious. That is not BRT. It's not a proper BRT.
It is a proper one.
Yeah, we need a proper one. Not just coming with red paint and sequestering one lane and saying that
Bus only.
Bus only.
BRT only.
No. That will not work. We have examples from other cities. I heard my governor saying he's going to look for a green bond for us to be able to do a light rail in Nairobi. I think it is long overdue because once we get mass transit going, the traffic will reduce.
It solves so many problems.
Absolutely.
It does a lot.
Yes.
It does a lot. Senator,
Yes.
there's a conversation that you say CT had wanted you to raise. And we
Absolutely.
talked about it last week.
Yeah.
So the motion that was discussed in the Senate,
Yeah.
which was protecting motorists accessing essential services at hospitals, airports, shopping malls from paying parking fees. It was your motion.
Absolutely.
Tell us about it.
So, as I told you earlier, these things emerge from conversations with ordinary people. This one as well originated from a conversation with an Uber driver. He asked me, I asked him, why is it that sometimes when you are at a certain distance from a certain place, like an airport, and when you request the Uber, the guy refuses to take you? Because many places here on Mombasa Road, starting from down here at Imara Daima, going that side to maybe Syokimau, if you request an Uber, you will see that the price is about 250 shillings. Now, you imagine that immediately the Uber guy enters the airport, he has to pay 100 shillings upon exit. Once he drops you and leaves, there is no, there is no discussion about it. Out of 250 shillings that you've paid him, he has to pay 100 shillings in parking. It just doesn't make any sense. Then you go to other places. I was in Zambia just at the beginning of our term at Lusaka International Airport. They call it Kenneth Kaunda Airport. There is a dedicated lane for those people who are not interested in parking at the airport that you have just gone to drop your friend. And there is no parking that is charged there. So even the taxis, all they do is just come in, drop, and leave. It is also present in other airports like Dubai, in Britain. All of you people, I'm sure you've traveled and you've seen these things. So it was from that perspective. And the Uber guys have an association, the digital association that I speak to every time. They have all these issues that they would want us to, sort them out. So that was the beginning of this conversation. And then it grew even bigger, and people asking, why are we paying parking at hospitals? At Kenyatta National Hospital, they never used to charge parking. This is a national institution. So you go in there, they say the first 1 hour is free. That's what they put in place. But I can assure you, City, even for them, it will take you longer than 1 hour to see a doctor at Kenyatta.
Just to find parking and get out of your car.
If it was that they can guarantee you that within 1 hour,
Their own service charge gives you
absolutely.
more than an hour.
So if they can guarantee you that you will be able to see a doctor, the problem that brought you there.
It is next to impossible.
Absolutely.
Even with an appointment.
Yes.
To actually get to park and go see a doctor and complete your business in 1 hour.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of that conversation. We looked at the hospitals as well. And with the airports, it's not just JKIA here in Nairobi. If you go to Kisumu, the taxi drivers are saying the same thing. Because with Kisumu now, it's not even time related or tied to how long time. For as long as you have access to the airport, you pay at the entry.
It's access and pay.
Correct. The same at Eldoret International Airport. So there are various issues, and
Same
then
with Malindi.
absolutely. So when you come to shopping malls, as well in many jurisdictions, because you have gone there to spend money on the shops that are there, and many of the tenants, the people who operate, shops at the shopping malls, they themselves agree, because there is a very big difference. In the psyche of the Kenyan, especially Nairobians, that if I am going to be inconvenienced at a certain mall, because once I do my shopping, I have to go and then validate or pay for parking. I'm not going to go to this particular mall. There are malls even here on Mombasa Road that don't charge parking, and you have a different experience as a shopper. So we don't understand the rationale, because I'm coming to spend money there. Some people argue that, some of these policies are in place because of our bad manners as Kenyans, that somehow we will go and park at Capital Center and then take matatus to town, leave the cars there for the whole day. But at the end of the day, the bad manners can be regulated. you don't punish the entire lot because there are a few bad apples who will come and take advantage of the system. And by the way, there is a way in which you can defeat people who are just abusing your parking.
What's the solution to that? Because, so let's address that first.
So, for instance, if you go to Carrefour at the hub, when you spend money there, they will give you a token to show that, in fact, you are a customer there.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just a layabout that you went in there to use their parking for free. So there are ways to circumvent some of these things, and that is how we want to think about it. So in some of these shopping malls, you get in and there is a minimum charge after 10 minutes, you know. And there is a senator who represents persons with disabilities. She's called Crystal Asige. She brought in this angle that, yes, Sifuna, you know, for you, it is very easy. If you are brought in by a taxi to jump out within 2 minutes, go to the chemist and buy whatever it is you want and jump back in and leave.
Yeah.
But you imagine a person with disability, that in fact it takes longer for them if you are in a wheelchair. To transfer from the wheelchair or from the vehicle to the wheelchair. And I've seen it myself. I gave the example of the Member of Parliament for Westlands, because I've campaigned with him in Nairobi. Tim Wanyonyi is also the chair of the Disability Affairs in ODM. I was a secretary for Disability Affairs. It is very difficult, my brother, for him to disembark. Even when we go to a meeting or a rally, we have to all stand and wait for him. And you know, for him, at least because he's a legislator, he has an entire army to help him to do that transfer. But it still takes time. So you imagine somebody who does not have the means. So this conversation is not a conversation that is frivolous. It is a real problem affecting real people, and especially from the perspective of the service providers, like the taxi drivers and the Uber guys. It makes sense for them to be allowed not to have to pay for parking just because of dropping somebody off. And then the other argument is from a constitutional standpoint. If we have been given these rights under Article 43, anything that fetters or limits your access to these rights surely is something that has to be dealt with.
What rights?
For instance, the Constitution says you have a right to health. So you have a right to access hospitals. But then, just like we have had this conversation about Kenyatta National Hospital, which is a public institution, the fact that you have to, there are obstacles for you to attain this particular right of yours is something that has to be addressed. So we are hoping that now that this is a Senate resolution, we want to take it forward. In the Senate we have been told there used to be something called an implementation committee that is no longer there. It falls again upon me as a Senator of Nairobi to be able to push this thing through so that we have now proper legislation on the subject. At least the policy is developed from the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Housing to the Council of Governors to have this conversation with them so that we can bring now a bill before the House to make this thing law. And I'm hoping that I'm going to get the same support that I got from my colleagues, because when this matter was on the floor of the House, both the minority and majority side were in agreement that some of these things... Absolutely.
Were there any concerns that were raised by anybody on the floor of the House from the business standpoint? So if you, like you've said, the malls are looking at it from, there are people who come and leave their vehicles here, thereby also inconveniencing the people who are genuinely coming to shop because they don't get parking. It's a finite commodity. Same in the hospitals and all. And then there are those who look at it from the point of, I have put up parking, I have security there, I have lights, I have all this, I need to be able to make money from it.
Yeah, but that is the wrong way to look at it, Eric, because it is an ancillary service that then allows for you to be able to have tenants, for you to be able to make money from rent. If you went to a coffee house that insists that they don't sell cups, they have coffee, but they will not give you a cup. It's just ridiculous, because if you speak to the tenants themselves, because if you speak to the mall owners, they're talking a totally different story from the tenants themselves. That the tenants feel that, in fact, these malls that are easier to access in terms of parking, that have enough and secure parking, are actually, making more business than them, And
so they're making money from the parking.
Absolutely. That is the problem. That, in fact, it is not an ancillary service. It is a separate business, which does not make any sense. And the tenants themselves are paying rents that are not necessarily because the landlord is making some money from the parking, he will give you a discount. No. They don't. In fact, some of these places, when you hear the horror stories about things they call goodwill, how much you have to pay before you even open the shop because, this is a fancy new mall and it is a nice location and so all sorts of things. People are actually paying way more than they should be paying, and they expect that at least the landlord would facilitate their customers to be able to come to their shop so that they make money and they earn their rent. Yeah.
Have you had conversations with all the stakeholders in this business?
Now,
for instance, the people who actually own the parking business. Yes, you've said you've spoken with the people who own the malls and the people who have their businesses there. But even as you think of legislating, have you considered the point of view of this business of parking and how it is that because it has grown, what it is that has led to it and what has led to it being accepted, because it can't grow if it hasn't been accepted.
So the parking management companies are a separate entity altogether.
Yes,
Absolutely.
they are.
So there is the mall,
Yes.
and the owner of the mall, and
Yes.
then there is the parking management, the one that provides that service.
Completely different. It's
not the mall.
It's independent of the mall. Right. There are malls who have brought in their own parking system.
Absolutely.
But you still pay. So my question is, there is a thinking behind it, and even as one thinks of legislating, should the views of these people who are in this business also not be considered?
Their views matter, but their thinking is simple. Their thinking is money. Their thinking is profit, But the motivation behind the motion is not to deny anybody money. We are just saying it amounts to double taxation of the population for you to be able to have this parking system in place, yet this person is coming to spend money on your premises, So if you speak to the parking management companies, what are they going to say? They are going to say Sifuna wants to kill our business. But if you are speaking to the customer and you're speaking to the who are the great majority are the customers who are suffering, if you are speaking from the perspective of JKIA, why does JKIA need to make money from that Uber driver who's charging you 250 shillings to drop you at the airport? It just doesn't make any sense, So there will be an opportunity, because I understand that before something becomes law, like when the bill that I craft comes finally, there will be a moment or opportunity for public participation.
Actually, I am saying the complete opposite.
Yes.
I am saying that even as you're doing a good business of talking with the mall owners and the clients and those who use the service, at this particular point, perhaps a conversation, because you have a view, this is what perhaps the businesses are interested in.
Yes.
But the thinking behind the business and how it is that it has morphed over time, I think to have a legislature or a legislation that has not only well thought of, but one which is well crafted, the views of these people who actually, as I said, own this business is pertinent. It's just as important as the views of those who own the mall and those who utilize the services.
What do you think, City? I mean, the senator is saying that their view would obviously be from the point of we make money out of this, it's our business. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it is. It is a correct view, but it's not the only view.
What other view would they? What other view would they possibly have?
Well, let me say, thank you very much for asking me that question. The way any business works, if it's supposed to succeed and to be long-lasting, is you consider what it is that the people who are utilizing your business would also benefit from. People will not continuously pay for something they don't see a benefit in. They will pay for a while, and after some point, they will abandon it. If you look at any business, whether it's an eatery, whether it's a winery, whether it's a cultural establishment, as I call it, the popularity has to do with the benefit that those who go there derive from it.
Are you saying that this business has grown because it is popular to pay parking?
I am saying the business has grown because those who pay see the need to pay.
No. You don't have a choice.
They don't see a problem.
You don't have a choice in the matter.
No, actually, I'm saying
they see the need.
They see the need. If you don't,
so somebody goes to a hospital and they see the need.
They need to pay parking.
No. This is a question that is multi-tiered, and the response, depending on the institution, is also multi-tiered.
Okay.
If you look at what Mheshimiwa has suggested about the Ubers and the taxis, it makes perfect sense. If you look at what he's saying about the hospitals, what is to prevent someone from saying, let them park for 3 hours free of charge? I am simply saying the conversation around this, what he points out to is real. And it's a conversation that those who are in that business need to take in, because as it has grown, people have gotten to understand it. And this is feedback, and it's valuable feedback. But by the same token, the views of those who run the business must be given the same consideration. That's really the point of view that I'm putting across.
I have no doubt that we will have conversations with them. I am very open to have that discussion with them. But we have proceeded from a perspective, City, that these services, whether it is health, banking, education, shopping, all of these things are a public good. They are essential for the well-being of Kenyans. With the advent of these shopping malls, it has become almost impossible for you to avoid, because this is where you go to do your monthly shopping. It is not as if you have much of a choice because of the convenience that has been created by those shopping malls.
Right.
Yeah. So it is, if it were possible for us to avoid paying parking, I can assure you there is no one here who sits and wonders which mall can I go to so that I pay the highest parking for these people to thrive.
But Mheshimiwa, by the same
That's what
token,
I'm saying.
if that was the thinking, then I would extend that thinking to a larger particular picture. If we were permitted not to pay taxes, who would pay taxes?
No. Taxes is a civic responsibility. This is a commercial enterprise.
Precisely.
This is
And
a commercial
also,
enterprise.
But Mheshimiwa, the rights we speak of,
Yes.
the people who run these businesses are either citizens of this country or they have some legal position in the country, and they also have rights, don't they?
They do.
Yes,
They
now,
do.
I am simply saying, should there not be a
Balance the two.
Yes.
What's a place of county, Senator?
First, what I can say is that that there is no legislation or policy that is going to be put in place without public participation. As a lawyer, I know that if you do that, they'll just run to court and you will get stuck with your law. What we're saying is that we are willing, I am personally willing to have that conversation with them. But I have explained where I was coming from and for whom I am doing this. I can assure you, City, and I said this at the beginning of the show, I am very well capable of paying parking wherever it is that I want to go. But I am saying that there are other people who are not in the same position that I am. And my job is to represent their views. I would wish one day, and in fact, I'm going to challenge you to invite that chair of the digital taxis to your show here, so that he can explain to you the problems that they are going
The pain
through.
that they go through.
When they are delivering this essential service. So it is not as if anybody is out to kill anybody's business. But we are saying that you should also have a business that makes sense generally. If for instance, coming to this studio, you invited me to your show today, and I have to pay parking when I leave, why would I come here? It is you to facilitate me to be able to come to your show. It is the same concept.
Are you going to raise the same issue with the counties?
Now,
Because the lack of parking spaces also
Absolutely.
speaks about the management of the municipal areas and the cities and towns.
Absolutely. For the parking areas for the county government, it is a totally different conversation in the public spaces, because also the public spaces are very limited. And for them, because they have this constitutional mandate, and they are being pushed from left, right, and center to raise what they call on-source revenue, and they are looking for all ways of trying to make money. That is a conversation that can be had within the county assemblies. And in fact, we separated these issues. If you see the memorandum that I received from the digital taxi guys, even in the CBD, they have no place to drop their fares. So that once they access the CBD, they have to pay for parking immediately they arrive there, and it is a big problem. They have asked,
actually they are harassed seriously by the county officers. It's a harassment.
They have requested that they be given a specific drop-off points on some of the major roads within the CBD, just so that they can be able to the designated places. But they've been advised by the county that they have to buy commercial space just like the other people, and it is very expensive for them. It is not possible for them to be able to do that. So it is an ongoing conversation as well. We have the leadership of the county, and the beauty with Nairobi is that in the assembly, at least, we are the majority side and we are reasonable people.
We who being whom?
We, as in Azimio. I come from this party called ODM. Have you forgotten? ODM.
No, I just want a definition of the we here.
So the county assembly, the majority in the county assembly is Azimio.
Is Azimio. And we are more amenable to reducing the pain of people as opposed to our brothers from the other side. So we should have better conversations.
Senator, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations once again. Dr. Simon Kigondu says congratulations to you on that issue of parking, double taxation, and the disability mainstreaming and hindrance to access to health facilities. He says it's a big thing. Dr. Kigondu is the chairman of the Kenya Medical Association.
Thank you so much, Daktari.
Senator Edwin Sifuna has been our guest. First time in very many times that he's going to be our guest on this show. Thank you very much for joining us today and welcome again soon.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me.
Keep it here for more conversations. In the next hour, we have a conversation with the Honorable Daniel Manduku, MP, who is also a member of Parliament's Committee on Housing, Urban Planning and Public Works, talking about President William Ruto's housing agenda. Is it a reality or is this all just a fantasy, hot air, chasing over wind and all those other things?
Why didn't you ask me that?
Conversation for another day.